not entertained? Better know we ain't playing, cause we not the same. Both players but we in two different games. Both on the road but in two different lanes. You're just propane, I'm actual flame.
Let out the beast. Let out the beast. Let out the beast. Let out the beast.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Hi.
Great. Hi, good to see you.
Yes, good to see you as well.
Good to see you. That's beautiful in the background there.
Love that.
It's a nice car.
It is.
I think the same.
Yeah, we had kind of the same idea. We put the Regera behind us.
Oh, beautiful, of course.
So I guess first and foremost, like Jordan said, we're incredibly excited for the Jesko. It's probably one of the most common questions we get asked is, what car are you most excited about? And I think the first car we all say is the Jesko.
And I think even when you talk to our subscribers at the car shows, everybody's asking about when's the next Koenigsegg coming. It seems it's definitely a fan favorite for sure.
Glad to hear. Well, that warms the heart. I'm super excited as well, and I've driven it. You might have seen, and I've driven it a couple of times, and it's just mind-boggling, exciting to drive. It's I mean, you have quite a lot of Koenigsegg experience now with the Regera, and there are a lot of things you will recognize, and there are, of course, a lot of things that are completely different. Can't wait to show you guys what it is.
Yeah, so I can't believe we were just reading or just heard about how fast revving this motor is. I mean, we were talking about just how incredible that must be. Does it feel a lot different than any other car that you've driven?
Absolutely. So when we started designing the LST transmission, as we have multiple clutches inside the transmission, which we use as synchronization to jump from one gear ratio to another. We're not really shifting gears, we're clutching around in there to jump between different gear sets. We didn't need a clutch on the engine anymore. And usually you have the flywheel to bolt the clutch to, so we said, let's see if we can get away with no flywheel and no clutch. And then we started simulating and checking for oscillations and vibrations and things like that. And we had to had some particular considerations for the crankshaft and for the pistons and conrods and the balancer on the crank and this and that. But it turned out it looked possible in theory, so we went for it. And then when we fired up the car, it's just shocking how responsive it is with that much less mass on the engine.
I mean, it gets us so excited. I mean, just hearing you talk about it, because that's completely proprietary to Koenigsegg, right?
Absolutely. We developed all of this in-house. The engine, the transmission, the controllers, the electronics, the software, everything.
Yeah, so that kind of brings us into another point, because one of the things that people are blown away about the Regera is that we tell them 99% of this car is completely built in-house. Does that translate to the Jesko? Is Jesko also?
Yeah, absolutely the same thing. Even aspects like hollow carbon fiber wheels, which are still there are some other examples of carbon fiber wheels out there, but ours are still the lightest and stiffest wheels we've ever seen, with no metal inserts anywhere. It's just pure hollow carbon fiber construction that we have patented. Even wheels, brake calipers, in-house design, which is super unusual, of course. All the electronics, the engine, the transmission, the suspension, the uprights, even things like the shock absorber. It says Öhlins on them, which is a Swedish famous brand of shock absorbers, but we go inside and change into electronic valves. We put on our hydraulic lifting systems, so it's really 50% Öhlins and 50% Koenigsegg, and we put them together here in our factory in Ängelholm. Infotainment system, all the software and electronics for that, over-the-air updatability, carbon fiber work we do in-house, upholstery we do in-house, painting, we have paint shop in-house as well. We don't manufacture the glass in-house. I mean, it is our design, of course, but we don't have like a melting pot for glass here, so we outsource.
Well, I think when I think of Koenigsegg, I think of the engineering genius that goes into it, and I think that's what everybody sees is that everything's done in-house and the engineering is next level. So are you involved with all these little engineering projects, or how much do you get involved in each part versus delegate to a team?
Well, it's both, I would say. I kind of run around and kind of get involved in everything, checking that we're moving forward, and I kind of tend to deep dive and dig down if we're getting stuck somewhere, if it's not moving forward, or if we need to reevaluate and think, then I get involved again. So there's so many parallel activities that of course I can't be deep in every aspect everywhere, but it's kind of where needed, where I can untangle and make things work. That's kind of my focus. And of course part of the initiation process of the conceptualization and what the design should be, what the criteria of the car, the ethos, and yeah, kind of setting everything off.
And I mean, how many companies can say that the owner, when the engineers are stuck on something, it's only a select few that the owner comes in and helps progress that area.
I think that's what's so neat about it. And I think that's why you have so many fans. And, you know, I consider myself a fanboy. It seems like you're kind of in that category with Tony Stark, maybe Elon Musk.
For sure.
It's like you're a superhero to me.
I have no idea.
Is that weird to say?
No.
Well, you know, I just do what I have to do to get things done, and sometimes it's more or less challenging or difficult. But yeah.
How is the development progressing on the Jesko? Are we 100%, 95%, or?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. So we're the car behind is a pre-production car. So we made prototypes before that. This is kind of in between a prototype and a production car. So we try to build it in a similar way as on the production line. It's mostly production parts, still some tweaks, of course. But we have set up the line for the Jesko, and we have the first 5-6 customer chassis on the line, and they are being built, and we're ramping that up. So come middle of January, beginning of February, we have all the Regeras out, and then it's full focus on the Jesko and full Jesko production, but it has already started. So that is very, very exciting. So deliveries are not that far away.
It is the car that we are most excited for. You know, we have a lot of cars coming from a lot of different manufacturers. And, you know, the fact that you've been so involved that you've, you know, called us up personally and talked to us about a couple issues, I mean, that happens nowhere else, you know? So, I mean, we kind of, you know, fanboy out on that a little bit, to be honest with you. But like, I mean, like just the involvement from you and your team and, you know, when we have an issue, being able to go in over the air and look at and just be so responsive and have you involved that's an experience in itself to be very excited and keep going with Koenigsegg, not just the car. But, you know, you yourself are a huge reason that it's so exciting to be in.
Really appreciate that. I mean, these cars are very much our babies, and we want them to perform at their utmost. And of course, they're extremely complicated animals, and sometimes there are some teething problems. But we're really focusing on creating a wonderful experience and getting the best out of this amazing technology. And of course, we're extremely excited by guys like yourself and girls who commit to our brand and becomes part of the family and enjoys the experience and give us feedback. It's so important. Yeah, we're all in, and whatever we can do to support the group and the team and the customers and the owners around Koenigsegg, we're always available.
I love that. I have a quick question for you out of pure interest. Is if you were speccing your own Jesko, and I don't know if you have yet or not, would you go with, I'm calling it the track version, maybe there's a better word for that, or the absolute, and what color are you going for?
That's a very good question. So it's a super hard thing to choose from, and in a way we kind of made it so if you're really into Jesko, you kind of need both because they're so different.
Sure, why not?
And they are very, very different. I mean, the track version has much stiffer suspension because it has so much downforce. So it becomes more of a hardcore experience, and on the track it's just otherworldly. Still, when you drive it on the road, as we have this adaptive suspension, we can open up the shock absorbers and we actually can reduce the spring ratio because we have triplics in the front and the rear, and we have hydraulic adjusters also on the triplics, so we can dial out quite a lot of spring load. Still, it is much, much stiffer even in that situation than the Absolute. The Absolute is focused on, of course, high speed and low drag and has much less downforce. So therefore we can have softer spring ratios, but when we go to the track with the Absolute, we can still stiffen it up to a large degree, similar to a Regera, which is amazing around the track. But it's this kind of focus difference. And then you have luggage compartment in the front of the Absolute, which you don't have in the track version or the attack version, because you have this huge air dam there to create more downforce. And I think, yeah, from a visual perspective, the Absolute is really streamlined, elegant, little bit more towards the Regera, maybe in that ethos or in the sense of the car. And while the track is just all out aerodynamics, maximum focus on that. It had to do with the transmission, because you have 9 gears with gear ratio, and it has to do with homologation and transmission, because as soon as you start changing gear ratios, you actually have to re-homologate the emissions of the cars and so on. But with so many gears, we could have the perfect transmission setup for the track. It was kind of tight enough and short enough gears for that. And we could spread our legs with extreme top speed, given we have so much power. But for that, we needed less downforce. Otherwise, we press the car too hard to the ground and have too much resistance for ultimate top speed. So basically, by changing the suspension and the aero, you have the perfect track weapon and probably the fastest production car in the world with those two differences. So it was the transmission and the power and the ability to do these different aero and suspension packages that drove to these two versions.
So you heard it here first. Probably the fastest production car.
Yeah, I mean, we have to do it first, right?
And then I heard you say in a previous interview, it was a while ago, but after the Jesko, you won't be so concerned with competing with the top speed. Is that correct?
Yes. So I mean, it's to go as fast as the Jesko Absolute is capable of is way too fast for what anyone should do, especially on a public road or anything. It's just there are so many things. When we were in Nevada and did our existing record with the Agera, I mean, we saw on the video footage afterwards, we placed cameras all along the road. Suddenly was a bird sitting on the road that flew away, and then the car came like 2 minutes later. You can have maybe tumbleweed or someone can have dropped something, or there can be a gust of wind. It's just way too fast to deal with those things. So it has to be in an extremely controlled environment, and still it can be dangerous. Of course, any speed is dangerous, even if you go a little bit slower than that. But it's pushing it to the limit, and it's also. I mean, if you focus on only top speed, there are other things, yeah, like track and so on, you can't focus on. And I think it's fast enough for a road car. I mean, it's just. Where is the end otherwise? Is 600, 700 miles per hour?
Correct. I mean, it's like, where's that point to where you stop? And, I'd imagine we're getting to that point, if not surpassed it, of, diminishing returns to where, like, what is it really doing for you other than...
It's just a bragging right anymore. It's not really usable.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we couldn't hold ourselves back when we saw it was up for grabs. But as you noticed, we actually presented the track first, and we hadn't at that point even decided we would do the Absolute. It kind of came as a consequence of the power and the transmission, and we saw we could do it, and then final hurrah to that.
So one of the things we heard about, just to keep on the Jesko for just a few more seconds. So the Jesko is named after your father?
So my father, still alive. He's 83. Great guy. He's been an entrepreneur all his life. When I started, the car company as a 22-year-old, he kind of shook his head and said, "I'm pretty crazy." He knew I was a car nut, but when I said I was going to start my own car company and build sports car, he still felt it was a bit on the wild side, of course. Like 1.5, 2 years in, we started to get kind of a prototype up and running. We're really struggling, 3-4 guys, and he kind of was between. He had. Exited the company he was part of and thinking of doing something else, and said, maybe I'll help you for a year or two. And I welcomed it, and it turned out to be like 5 or 6 years of day and night working back to back. And I don't know how I would have gotten through that period without his help. And it was really kind of forging us together, and a fundamental experience. So when I had the chance to honor him, actually he had just turned 80 a couple of months earlier when we unveiled the Jesko, so it was just a great thing to be able to honor him when he was still around and still going strong. And
That's absolutely incredible. So did you surprise him 100% at his 80th birthday?
yeah, so we actually, the working name for the Jesko was Ragnarök, and we're thinking maybe that would be the name, but then suddenly Aston Martin started using all these kind of Viking names, Valkyrie and Valhalla. Actually, we're in Valhalla Park here as well in Sweden, where we have our factory. But so they were starting to use that, and we thought probably we'll have something else, and then the idea of Jesko kind of emerged. So he asked for the press release like a day or two before Geneva Motor Show, because he usually want to see what we're up to, and then we wrote Ragnarök on the fake press release to me. Said, yeah, great car, but I don't really like the name so much, he said. And then when we unveiled the car, the true name came out, and he was pretty shocked, and so it was
Perfect.
Cool
I mean,
experience.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, to forge that relationship and that bond over 5 or 6 years when he helped you, and then to finally be able to honor him with a name on a car that's breaking boundaries has to be just. I mean, can't even imagine really what that feeling is like. So that's another amazing part of the history of Koenigsegg, to where we're excited to be a part of that, because we're from a family business. We've worked together for 25 years in a family business. Recently sold it, but between myself, my brother Jason, and our father, we've been integrated and used to that like relationship. I mean, sometimes not so great. But it forges a bond that's unlike anything else within family. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, very true.
I'm still stuck at, I started my car company at 22. Like wow. And the faith that your dad must have had in you to walk away and say, I'm going to, back my son starting. It's not easy to break into the automobile business.
No.
And
As I said, first he was like shaking his head and said, are you really going to do this? And so, but when there was kind of a chassis there with wheels on it, and we started kind of becoming something, I said, okay, they're serious, he means this, and let's see how I can help him.
I mean, that's just extremely supportive.
Right.
I feel like most people would just call you crazy.
And I think that's what makes the company so magic, when you have that engineering genius along with the entrepreneurial spirit. A lot of places have one or the other. When that can come together, it's really where I think a lot of the magic comes from.
Yeah, and I started Koenigsegg in 1994, and this was, of course, before the big wave of automotive startups that we're seeing now in the electrified arena. It was at a time where no startups were allowed. They didn't work at all. I mean, it was this 100-year-old industry with just 4, 5, 6 big players. I didn't care. I just wanted to build my car. And nowadays, of course, it's less of a strange thing. But back then, it was very much something you could not do. But I remember saying to myself that I believe anything is possible if you put your mind to it. And apart from wanting to build cars, I want to prove to myself that that is true, and I want to prove it to everyone else. And I think maybe that's one of the most important things about Koenigsegg. It's proving that if you fight really hard and give it everything you got, pretty much anything seems to be possible, as we're still around.
And I love that. And a lot of people ask our father, what does it take to build your own business like this? And his first answer is always perseverance. He said, I've been told I couldn't do it from, such a young age. And I just used that as motivation. I thought, I know I can do this. And if I, push through so many failures, so many, you can't do this, that it just kept on building and building this drive and this motivation to prove everybody wrong and show I can do this.
And I expected, of course, people were skeptical in the beginning, and I very much expected it. A 22-year-old kid from Sweden with no previous experience, come on. It's, of course, you should be skeptical. It was the opposite of a business idea. It's like, have I done it before? No. Is there a market for this, for a Swedish hypercar? No. Do I have enough resource or finance? No. It was like everything was just no. So that's a good reason to start.
It seems like that's where all like these like just crazy like genius companies. There's such a vision before anybody else does it. Everybody just thinks you're crazy, and that's where it develops. Even like pre-internet days, going to like cell phones. It's like the same thing. Everybody thinks like it's too crazy. There's no way that doesn't exist today. But those words are fantastic about perseverance, especially in today's world, where we seem to be getting further and further away from being able to stick with something and persevere past failures. Just such a good message to every human being on the planet, not pertaining to any certain country, but I mean just everybody could take that advice and understand that it's within your own power to create whatever you want to create and to not use excuses for anything.
Yeah, of course, you can say I got help from my father, but in the consequence of the car industry, it's like we were together, nothing still. It's just a father and a son in a small garage kind of thing, and it's not that he had a huge fortune or something. It was, pretty normal means, and but we persevered. So
correct, and I mean, no matter how you persevered, I mean that's part of your story, that's part of your history, and that's in other words, you do whatever it takes. Going back a little bit, let's go back in time a little bit, I suppose, before the Jesko, before the Regera, before we're sitting here with an interview in front of Christian Von Koenigsegg, right? I mean, there was a time, so like I kind of want to get into what sparked your passion for cars, and how early of an age, and what are the things that you were doing or collecting, and just kind of what from that early perspective, what that was like.
My car interest, as far as I can kind of remember, started when I was about 6-7 years old, and I saw this Norwegian stop-motion puppet movie about a bicycle repairman who lived on a Norwegian kind of mountain peak. And he had a dream of building like a Le Mans racing car, and he had two kind of kids helping him out, and they created this monster of a car, kind of wild thing with a 12-liter engine in the front and a rocket engine in the rear, and it didn't really look like a race car. It looked like some kind of weird monster. And then he competed against like Porsche and Ferrari on this Le Mans style racetrack, and won against the establishment. And I remember walking out of the cinema or the movies, my father took me there, and he reminded me as well that I said, that's what I want to do when I grow up. I want to be that bicycle repairman. And kind of looking at the similarities now, it's kind of in a way similar. And ever since, I kind of used my pocket money to buy car magazines as a kid, reading them extremely closely, like with just a few inches away, looking at all the details. Why is that wheel not looking different on the Porsche than the Ferrari? That wing mirror is a slightly different position. How do they put their kind of weather strips in? Why is that different? Why does that have a frame around that window and not this one? How does that affect the shape of the car? What about aerodynamics? What about ergonomics? Like reading the car magazines to educate myself, with the mindset of educating myself on how to construct cars, kind of deconstructing what I saw so I could reconstruct what I wanted. And that seems like a naive thing looking back at it, but I've used kind of that bank of thousands of hours of looking at that when I do cars today. It's like I have memories of all these strange things that I looked at, and as a reference to what I'm doing or what we are doing here now. But then I got into kind of tuning mopeds. I wanted to get my hands on some kind of machines that moved and had energy in them, and whatever I could get my hands on. So I started with mopeds, then small boats, and then motorcycles. I tore them apart and tuned them and fixed them. Went in a little bit to electronics, took apart my parents' VCR to see how that worked, and I wanted to understand, like connected, did RC planes, RC cars, anything that moved and was fun and that you could fiddle with and tweak and change. I started designing the car. I had a Commodore 64 computer, which I got at Christmas in 1982, as I was like 10 years old. And I started actually kind of with pixels, draw cars on that, and then in 87, I think I got a Commodore Amiga computer with much better graphics. And then I started designing cars in that one. So I always designed kind of digitally, not so much drawing by hand, always kind of the digital design. So just kept on doing that.
You mentioned going to the theater and seeing this kind of David versus Goliath bicycle go against Ferrari and Porsche and win. Is that something you see yourself eventually getting to? Is entering a Koenigsegg in Le Mans?
Yeah, so actually we did create the GT1 Le Mans kind of car in 2007 called the CCGT, and it was the GT1 regulation. It was based on the CCR. Really fantastic machine. But the same year we finished the car, they shut it down, the series, and then it became this prototype series, which is for a different type of car where you don't take your road-going kind of super hypercar, mega car, and convert it into race car, but where you start more from scratch, more like a formula car, but with bodywork on it, of course. And I've kind of been hoping and waiting for this GT1 regulation to come back, where we can see today's hyper and mega cars being kind of converted into race cars and compete in this kind of Le Mans style race. That would be so exciting to see. And I think we would be up for that, but to kind of create just race cars on the side that have nothing to do with our road cars, it's kind of less exciting to me, because it's more abstract, it's fun, and it's a cool effort. But it would be so much more exciting if we can kind of race what we can drive and relate to as a car company and as you as customers and so on, that it's what you own, that you can see what it can do as a race car, like the GT1 regulation was. So yeah, hopefully that can come back, and there is actually one Koenigsegg already like that from 2007.
So, you know, kind of getting into your history a little bit, at what age did you get married?
Yeah, so I got married year 2000 to my high school sweetheart, Haldora. We've been together, since high school, basically, for 12 years or whatever before that. So, and we're still married, and we have 2 kids, 2 boys. My oldest son, Sebastian, he's helping out here at the company with social media, making films, videos, music, these kind of things. Also helping out, shaping the kind of CI of the company, and doing a little bit of this and that. So that's very exciting. So we're very much a family company still, even though we're getting over 500 people. So
yeah, that's absolutely incredible. So did you guys have kind of this plan to go into this together? Because so you were with her before you started the company at 22.
Correct. No, yeah, we met when I was 19 and she was 16. No, actually not. We said we would not work together, and she went on to study kind of. She was in the U.S. for a while studying, and I was working with this, and then she started working in other industries and in Denmark and in Germany, but then I kind of came to a point where we were growing and I really needed help, and she was between things. And this was like 2000 or 2001, just around when we got married. And we said, okay, let's try it. And then it just felt great. We understood each other really well. She kind of understood my challenge. She could help me. And we never looked back. And I actually don't think maybe it would have worked if we wouldn't have done that, because we really had each other's backs, and I could focus on the technical development and so on, and she focused very much on the administration side of the company and finance side and this and that. So it relieved me a lot of the things that distracted me before she started. So fantastic.
That's really cool, because it might be one of the only occurrences I've heard of a husband and wife working together that was actually better for them. Because I can't imagine. I mean, God bless my wife. I love her. I just it must be so. I just couldn't work all day, every day, and then go back with the kids and everything. So that's pretty amazing that you're able to do that and raise kids together.
Today, yeah, absolutely. So today, I mean, we maybe meet once or twice during the day. It's not like we sit next to each other and work. So, but we kind of, find our different angles of creating this company. And about kids, I mean, they ran around here as toddlers, of course. And I remember my wife Haldora having our younger son on her desk in this little rocker thing while working. And
oh my gosh, that's incredible.
A true family business. That's pretty cool to see. Multi-generational. You start with your dad, and now you have your kids there. And
I mean, it's about being all in. I mean, this was all absorbing, getting it done, So, and she's very much an entrepreneur. She comes from also an entrepreneurial family. She grew up with her father, kind of running his own business and this and that. So to her, it was like, I guess, running water. It's what people do, kind of thing. So that helped as well.
Yeah, I just can't help out but point out a couple similarities from a few things that you've said. You said you started your business in '94. Our father started our business in '94
Oh, cool.
as well. It's a plastics business. You married your high school sweetheart. I married my high school sweetheart. You have all boys. I have all boys. I mean, it's kind of a cool thing to have a few similarities. So I don't know.
Well, even growing up in a family business, I remember, carrying my 2-year-old son through the plant as I'm looking at all the equipment running, and he grew up running around my desk there, and it's just neat when you have that family. And I think we had a business that was 24/7, 365, and to be that far in, it has to, life has to kind of merge with the business, or it's just not possible.
Right, exactly. And we live actually maybe a little bit too close. We live like 7 minutes by car away from the factory. So of course, I guess like in Ohio, in the winter we have some snow here as well. So it's hardly the car gets warm before I'm here, and you can always sneak away on the weekend very easily. On the other hand, we live in the summer. It's a beautiful area here. We're just on the coast. There are nice beaches. You can have boats, and so if the weather is if there is sunshine out and maybe there is an afternoon which is a little bit slower, you can immediately go out on the water. You're kind of on vacation after 20 minutes leaving from work. So it's this kind of great work-life balance, even though work is predominant, but it never feels like work. I kind of say that I've never gone to work a day in my life. I'm just having the best time of my life, spending energy and passion on my kind of hobby, I guess, in a sense, right? I mean, this is what I love to do. So then it doesn't feel like work.
That's amazing. So do you have any hopes to have your sons take over or run the business, or not quite sure yet what you want to do there?
So I think they're still quite young, of course, and I don't want to push anything on them, and it's always difficult to know exactly what the future looks like, and especially the car industry, right? I mean, what will the car industry look like in 10, 15 years? It's impossible to say. But I'm a believer in that they should do whatever they really enjoy and like, and if that's helping out here or working here, then the door is for sure open. And if they want to do other things, that's fine too. So
I like that. This is a topic for Jason. I wanted to kind of throw this over to Jason because he really enjoys the AI side of things and the
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll kind of leave that.
I just think it's interesting to see kind of where the industry's going with autonomous driving. And do you see yourself kind of getting into that arena? And obviously the technology is so integral part of what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're spending maybe much more time on advancing some wild technical ideas than we're asked to do by the market or our customers and so on. It's like the Regera behind you. No one asked for this kind of crazy drivetrain with no gear shifting and this and that, but we just felt, hey, we have some stuff here and ideas, and we can build upon that and create something completely unique and different that's never been around before. And that's also why we do all these kind of electronic platforms, hardware, software, over the air, data logging systems, so we can learn and build into the next thing. The Jesko, of course, is not even a hybrid, but the Gemera, our four-seater, is very much building off of what the Regera learned us, so we're kind of going in different directions at the same time. And I would say autonomous system is very much part of that, because in my mind, if you're stuck in a traffic jam for an hour or two in a mega or a hypercar or a regular car, it's as boring sitting still like this. It's maybe a little more fun in a hyper mega car, but it's still not very exciting. So if you can push a button where it just drives by itself and you're allowed to fiddle with your phone or take a nap or something, why not? As long as it doesn't make the car heavier or worse. It's like, in the Regera you have 2 cup holders. Some hyper mega cars say, no, you should not drink in our cars. Well, I want the cars to be used and to be usable as much as possible with as little compromise as possible. So therefore we did that. And wireless charging for the phones and Apple CarPlay and whatever we can put in that doesn't compromise the experience of extreme performance that it should have as a base, of course. And then you get kind of autonomous drive systems into that picture, because the good thing about it, it's not heavy or space consuming very much. It's just software heavy, which doesn't weigh much. So therefore, you can have it with very little compromise in also sporty cars, in my mind. and it's exciting to work with, and it's exciting what it can do. It can also enhance the fun performance enjoyment if you have it like guidance for track use, like video games. It can give you a little bit force feedback or something, or you can have a head-up display showing lines on the road to follow, more or less. So you can also like enhance the driving experience with it if you want. That's a few years out before that would work, I would say, but for sure we like to be part of that evolution.
So safe to say you're on the developmental path or beginning stages of working on and engineering some of that stuff.
Absolutely, yeah, that's very true.
Well, one of the things that you mentioned too was, I think your general ethos is to drive the cars and you want them to be driven, and that really, I think another reason why it's so cool to be able to talk to you is we share that exact same ethos. And I don't know if another Regera owner drives their Regera as much as we do or puts it through as much. I can't say that, but I would guess that we're up there, and we love. I mean, like right now, for instance, we have a nail in the tire. So we have,
Right, okay.
So we have to, next week, Brett and I are going and trailering it 7 hours away to a dealership because, especially because of the carbon fiber wheels, we don't want anybody just trying to take a tire off that and remounting. So we're going to drive 7 hours, just have the tire put on and drive it back. But that's to us, that's part of the fun, I guess, if that might sound weird, but just being able to drive it and use it how somebody would their family SUV.
Right. Yeah. So no, as you say, most of course of these type of cars, Koenigsegg or others, are not daily driven, but we have a few examples like yourself, which use them a lot, and that's what we build and create them to be able to do. It's so important to us. I mean, they should not just be museum pieces; they should also be enjoyed. I mean, we put so much energy and time into the driving side of it that it would be a shame if that wasn't experienced properly. But there are a couple of customers out there which are actually putting a lot of miles on the cars, also the Regera. So that's very, very cool.
That's good. It has to make you so sad, all the energy you put in, and people just park it in a garage and have like 7 miles on it.
I mean,
it
is beautiful to look at, but it's much more enjoyable getting behind the wheel and driving.
Oh my God.
Fully agree.
Incredible. You have to just be like, you work hard and probably, I don't know, 80 to 90% are just going to sit there.
And actually, when the cars are being used, they actually work better as well. If you have something that's sitting for 6 months or a year, rubber seals, they can dry up and lubrication and stuff like that. They just have a better life if they're being driven.
Absolutely, for sure. So
I want to touch on something real quick.
Yeah.
Back to Jason's AI and autonomous driving question. Has there been any sort of engineering ideas that you've been prohibited based on technology? Like advances in technology just haven't quite caught up to your engineering ideas?
Good question. Difficult to answer in a way because it's kind of a daily thing. It's like we're kind of pushing the boundaries, and the question is how much would we have pushed if we weren't kind of mentally thinking about limitations. I think the first car I ever wanted to do, I designed, had no wheels on it. So I thought, why should you be in contact with the ground all the time when traveling from A to B and feeling every little pebble and rock and rut in the road if you could just float over the road with a couple of inches, but not through air pressure, but through some kind of anti-gravity means. I quite quickly came to the conclusion that was difficult. You basically had to have another Earth above Earth that you would levitate in between to have enough mass to counteract. So that didn't work out. So I guess that's the clearest memory of a limitation of technology, that we need wheels on the cars.
yeah, that's a good question. But I'm sure if it's possible from an engineering standpoint, you guys will definitely be in the forefront and be pushing that boundary like you do every day, from what you say.
Yeah, I mean, I find excitement in being to push boundaries and being allowed to push boundaries by the situation I'm in and we're in. To have nice people like yourself being willing to be part of this wild journey.
And we're hoping to make it over there.
For sure. That is top on our list, to fly right into that Go Squadron airport.
You're welcome anytime, and we're rebuilding and renovating quite a lot of time at the moment. So in about 8 months, we have pretty much expanded the place to double the size for the Gemera production, the 4-seater. So yeah, it's exciting times. But yeah, love to have you over and to show you the Jesko production line and everything we're doing here.
Yeah, we're very excited. I can't wait to get the Jesko.
And I will take you out on the airfield. You can experience it there as well.
That would be sweet. So, do you do any of the driving in any of the promo videos? Do you drive for any of that, or is that more of like a professional driver you have?
So there is a video of the Jesko where I'm driving with my son on the airfield. It's on our YouTube page, and I do a lot of verification and test driving and testing of systems. But when it comes to setting like top speed records or lap records or stuff like that, we have 4 or 5 really skilled drivers working here that are. Some of them have competed in Le Mans. Some of them are like go-kart champions and stuff like that, and they're really like, yeah, much faster drivers than I am. Even though I consider myself to be okay, I'm not at their level. So for showing the ultimate performance, I mean, they're happy to power slide on our runway here at like, yeah, 200 miles per hour kind of thing.
Oh my gosh,
I wouldn't do that.
Not too keen on
that
that.
would be scary. Do you guys have any other questions? This has been wonderful to be able to sit down with you, Christian, and just kind of pick your brain, not only from an engineering and hypercar side, but from the family side and a lot of the similarities that we have from business to family. It's I think just I can't think of a better fit from I just can't, from a manufacturer to a client, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just neat to hear your story and just everything that goes into it. All that is kind of a package with the relationship, and it makes that experience so much more enjoyable for us.
Mm-hmm.
My greatest pleasure, and yeah, thank you for coming on board, and thank you for being so enthusiastic. It's really what drives me and all of us here at Koenigsegg to push to the next level again and see. Yeah, what do you think of it, and listen to all the feedback and build off of that again. That's what it's all about in the end. It's just growing this together as a client constructor situation. It's amazing.
Well, I mean, that's great. So thank you for taking the time, and we look forward to building our relationship even more, and getting more acquainted and continuing this journey. We're excited.
Yeah, it's all about community, and if we can pitch in on things like this, we're of course more than happy. It's just spreading the word and spreading happiness. It's the least we can do.
It's great. I love it. So again, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Yeah, take care.
Thank
All the
you.
best.
Thank you.
Right. Bye.
That was a pretty cool
I thought that
experience.
went great.
He's the coolest dude. Like
I wanted to say it.
I love that dude.
I wanted to say it, but I didn't want to like come off as an insult. He has such a simple way of explaining how crazy his ideas and thoughts are.
That kind of reminds me.
That's how he gets the buy-in. Like, it's just nuts. Like, you described like what he described. It hasn't been created. Like, yeah, it's like
The way he explains things is so simple.